Awesome. Thanks, Kim. Appreciate it. Tonight, I'm going to spend my time talking about the workforce development programs that we have available in our state. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And attempt to, there we go. It's in a different spot. My apologies. Here we go. So tonight we're going to talk about three programs that are statewide. So one is Career Compass for Health and Human Services, and that is our newest program, started in September of 2022. We have Power Ohio wage supplements, as well as T.E.A.C.H early childhood scholarships. So tonight, we're going to run through a lot of information, which I think is great that this is being recorded in case you want to reference it later. But talking through the scholarship components, the application process, eligibility, and information about college tuition and Power Ohio. So our T.E.A.C.H scholarships, there are a multitude of scholarships that are available. One is the CDA training, and that's available either through college credit or through this child care resource and referral agencies in your area. And they provide the entire 120 hours of training. The R&Rs also provide some technical assistance around the portfolio, getting those professionals ready to take the assessment. Once they have their training, they can then apply for the CDA Credential Assessment Fee Scholarship. So this is the $425 that's paid to the council on their behalf. And then they also receive a bonus. This, as well as all of our T.E.A.C.H scholarships, is that three-way partnership between T.E.A.C.H, the scholar, who's your employee, and the employer. So there's components about retention that's included in all of these. So with the CDA assessment fee, the employee needs to work at the program for 6 months after they receive that, so that we have this built-in retention of them attaining their credential or degree and then staying at the program that they're at. Then we also have college credit degrees as well. So we have what would be deemed as a pretty narrow scope for T.E.A.C.H. So it's the Associate of Applied Science in Early Childhood or Child Development. There is also the Bachelor of Arts in Early Childhood Education or Child Development. The Bachelor of Arts also is a building block component. So a scholar has to have their associate to be able to move on to the Bachelor of Arts. Also, as I work through, please, if you have questions, go ahead and stop me at any time, but we'll also have some time at the end. So the 5 components of T.E.A.C.H. So one is the comprehensive scholarship. So not only does the scholar receive partnership in tuition, which T.E.A.C.H pays for 90% of the tuition, there's also what we would call wraparound assistance with this as well. So there's books, release time, there is a internet travel stipend. So all of the pieces that help the scholar complete their contract year with us. A contract year is 3 semesters. So we try to provide that support as well. The education component, so again, they're getting their CDA credential or their degree. Compensation is a part of this as well, and so much in the workforce crisis that we're in, addressing compensation, this as well as some of the other programs provide a compensation component to, again, help retain those individuals. Commitment, so it's a continued employment after. So with the CDA credential, that's 6 months. With the degrees, that's 1 year. And so the concept is we know it takes more than 1 year for someone to complete a degree, but as they are working on their next contract, so contract number 2, they're meeting the retention requirement with contract number 1. And it continues to build that way until essentially once they attain their degree, they would then stay the 1 year after. And then finally, the counselor. So we have counselors on staff that assist them through the scholarship process. For many of our scholars, because we collect quite a bit of data on their experiences, many of them are first generation college students. They have children and family commitments. They're working close to full-time, if not full-time. And so having someone to help support them through this process as they're navigating something new, and just kind of feed things off of. So if they're having trouble in a class, what should I do? Or, just having that sounding board is quite helpful for those scholars as well. The application process. So we moved the T.E.A.C.H application to the Ohio Professional Registry. That was in July of 22, just to streamline the process. A lot of the applications in our state are already there in the professional registry, so we added this one. So once a professional opens the application, they're able to select which one they're applying for. To complete, the scholar submits the application. Now, this is one step, and again, it goes back to that three-way partnership with the employer. So the workflow of the application includes the employer as well. So they complete and submit the application, and then it goes to the program administrator of your program to be able to review that and select program approved. Once program approved is selected, then it comes to Okra for us to review and work through the process. So it helps streamline a lot of the information because if you've ever worked with us before, there's specific program information that we request. And so it was on the application. Many times the scholars didn't know it because it's not something they work with on a daily basis. So it streamlined the process for that program collection of information. And then, it's a faster approval process. We continue to work with programs on this workflow because it is new. It's the only one of the applications in the OPR that work like this to make sure that we have that program approval before we move forward. So eligibility, as we look at these different scholarships, currently we have Type A, Type B, Family Child Care, Teacher, Assistant Teacher, Owner, Administrator of a licensed ODJFS Early Care and Learning Program. Currently, there is no wage cap. So as we took a look at this through the pandemic, it was very difficult. Our old wage cap didn't really meet the increased wages that were happening during the pandemic. So it was removed. They have to work with at least 20 hours with children ages birth to 5. So really looking at that infantile or preschool teacher in that regard. Have worked for your program for 90 days. This used to be longer. It used to be 180 days. We reduced that again to be an incentive for those working in the program. And then commit to staying to the program for that 6-month retention component. College degree, very similar as far as the roles. Also no wage cap at this time. Again, for the number of hours worked, that's a little higher. So it's 30 hours a week with children. Again, that birth to 5 age group. Have worked for your program 90 days. And then the commitment period is a little longer as this is more intense. So it's 1 year for each scholarship contract. So I'll pause there before I move on. Any questions on T.E.A.C.H at this point?
I have a question.
Oh, sure. Oh, do you want me to go?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay. No, I was just wondering if they do that for master's programs as well, or just is it just up to bachelor's?
Just up to bachelor's at this point.
Okay. Okay.
I think you already said this, but I just want to clarify. So each scholarship contract is 3 semesters, and then the student owes 1 year of employment after that. And then, did you already say how many contracts, or just till the completion of the degree?
Just till the completion of the degree.
Okay, and then somebody's keeping track of how many years that person might need to give back.
Exactly. And they're essentially paying it back as they go. So it's not at the end, it's as they're continuing, they're doing the retention for the prior agreement. And then I should also say that in that contract, the expectation is that they'll complete between 9 and 15 credit hours in those 3 semesters. So again, depending upon the student, it may just be that class at a time because that's what they're able to commit to. And then we're able to increase that based on their success as well. We have had students that completed more than those 15 credit hours, but that's typically a conversation with their counselor. Again, making sure that, we don't want to put them in a situation that they're not successful. And so we have those conversations. What does that mean? What sort of systems may you have in place that are going to help support you through a more rigorous course schedule?
Judith,
Now-
there's 2 questions in the chat box. One is, what age can an employee be to apply?
So for that particular one, they have to be working in the program. So there isn't so much an age of the employee at this point. But I will say if we're looking under the age of 18 or in a high school program, we're looking at some other opportunities for them. So typically, it's those of a 18 or above typically.
And the other question is there a date that the scholarship application for the CDA opens, or is it open year round?
It opens year round. I will say that if you're looking at the CDA training component, those happen through the training organization directly. So with the R&Rs, and I know they set it pretty much on almost like a school calendar. They start in this October, time frame, October, November time frame, so that they're finished in about May, June time frame. So if you're looking for that type of opportunity, definitely. And then if you reach out to the counselors, they can help steer you with that information as well.
Stacy?
I think you had already said this, but I wanted to make sure. The admins and owners are also eligible for this,
Yes.
for the T.E.A.C.H grant?
Yes.
Okay. And then we have to be a licensed program, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
That's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Sure. The only difference between the admin and owner scholarship model is that there isn't a release time component. So that's mainly for the teacher roles.
Can I ask
Awesome.
another question?
Sure.
If somebody is doing a program now and partway into it, can they switch over and go on the T.E.A.C.H program?
Yes, as long as they're obtaining that degree and attending one of our cooperating schools.
Is it the University of Cincinnati? Is that one of?
Yes.
Okay, because I have one employee who's working on her associates right now, and I'm confused why she took out loans and grants unless she got grant money. I don't know
Sure.
why she did it that way.
Many of our folks are Pell eligible, and we
Mhm.
require the FAFSA to be completed so that those funds get
Okay.
applied first. So
Okay.
that may be possible.
Okay. All right. I will see. So she can apply for the second year or anytime?
For sure. Yeah.
Okay.
And even if someone, say they went to school, but they didn't complete the process and they're trying to come back in, that
Okay.
we will work with those folks as well, because there might be some credit that already exists, and then they just dive into where they are in the course catalog.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. I'll have her relook at it.
Awesome. No problem.
There's a couple more questions in the chat box. One is, do they need to have a certain title in Okra for the CDA scholarship? I'm assuming in the registry they mean.
Yes. So that's where the role becomes important. So that's where you're looking at a type A, type B provider, as well as that assistant teacher, lead teacher, administrator, owner. I will say when they change the assistant director, so it has a different role. If you do have that one, the counselors will reach out for a letter, because the selection that's currently there is a little vague. And so we just have to know that, you have an assistant director title, and we work with that as well.
And the last question I see is there a cap per location that prior to the pandemic, there was a limit of 2 per center?
Yeah, so we had worked with 2. Right now, it's not a hard and fast rule. But what I will say is, once you reach 2 and would like to add additional, we do have that conversation with the program, because we want to make sure that the program is able to meet the commitment related to that. And it's mainly around release time. And so we have ideas about how to work through that if folks have questions. But we just want to make sure that all of the scholars are able to access all of the benefits related to that.
Okay, looks like you're good to go.
Awesome. All right. So next up is Career Compass for Health and Human Services. So as I mentioned, this is our newest opportunity, and it has a couple different items. I've focused here on college tuition reimbursement, but I also want to talk about the connection to high school and career tech, just for awareness, because again, what we have found in the pandemic is that there's no one strategy that's going to help us through this workforce crisis. It's going to take a lot of potentially different strategies, meeting people where they are, and helping them through the process. So just a moment on the high school and career tech. We are working with the correct career tech schools here in Ohio, and providing scholarships for those students as well who are working through the CDA process. So there's a scholarship specifically for them that provides the $425 assessment fee, as well as an incentive, as long as they have their high school diploma and CDA uploaded into the registry. Typically June 30th of each year, because that follows the state fiscal year. So we work with those students and help them through that process as well. Theirs is a little challenging because, most career tech programs are 2 years long, and they're usually ready to apply for the CDA in maybe February, March, and many of them are graduating in May. So it's kind of the race to the finish line, because once they graduate, we seem to lose them. So we try to make sure that process happens very quickly, to make sure that we, again, have that pipeline of folks into the field. Also supporting this, you may have heard of the rule change around those that are in high school, or under the age of 18, but also still in high school or recently graduate. So there's some new roles associated with that to help support some of these workforce issues as well. So it's, again, trying to get all of these pieces and parts working together and connecting the dots. We also are looking at working with our higher ed population to see if there are mechanisms to use College Credit Plus more in the high schools, and provide that career path a little clearer, so that students that are interested in that can do that while they are still in high school. So that sums up our high school component. This particular piece is around college tuition reimbursement. And so this is different than T.E.A.C.H. For a couple of reasons. So one is the nature of the degree in the cooperating school. And it is expands upon that a little bit. So with this particular component, students must be at least enrolled in an Ohio institution, meaning that the college is Ohio based. Their role is an assistant teacher or a lead teacher, working at least 30 hours a week with children birth to age 5, working in an ODJFS licensed childcare, that would be Family Child Care Center, and they're earning a grade of C or better. So the acceptable degrees is a larger list, and these are specific to the related degrees in the OPR. So to be a related degree, it's at least 12 credit hours in child development. So this kind of broadens what we are supporting there, because T.E.A.C.H. is very child development, early childhood education, and the list of acceptable degrees is what we would help support. So if they're looking at different types of education degrees, but they're working in childcare right now, this would be a support to them as well. Questions on Career Compass?
Hi, this is Steph.
Hi.
Sorry about that. Let me move in another room here to give us a little better sound. So I have a young lady who is 17. She'll be 18 in February. She works for us part-time, and she is wanting to do the Career Connections. How do I get her on board with that?
The Career Compass?
Career Compass, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so in the OPR profile,
Okay.
again, in the applications, there's a Career Compass application there. So she can fill that out and send it in. It's electronic.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
With the Career Compass, Judith, at least part-time, is there a certain number of credit hours that equates to part-time?
No, it's really what we're looking at here. It's tuition reimbursement. So they are moving through their career or their college, the degree aspect, and then we're just reimbursing the tuition part to that. So, you know, if they're only taking 3 credit hours, that's all that we're reimbursing.
Okay. And is there a maximum on the number of credit hours that would be reimbursed in a semester?
It's up to $5,000 per semester.
Okay. All right. Sorry if I missed that.
No problem.
Okay. Therese, you had your hand up and now your name somehow disappeared. Are you still here?
Yeah, I'm still here. I was trying to
The box
reread it.
moved.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to reread it to make sure. This is discussing the high schoolers being able to work in the programs, correct?
This particular for the college tuition assistance would be for those professionals working in the field, not specifically for the high schoolers.
Okay. Because I saw what Julie had asked about a 17-year-old. The literature we received in Franklin County for FCCs, they have to be high school graduates. Does that still apply?
So I'm not sure what literature that would be to be able to assist there. Now, if it was something specific to licensure, we would have
It
to.
wasn't specific. I mean, it was specific to the rule change, but for family child care, the assistant doing this career compass didn't have to be 18, but they did have to be a high school graduate.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Yep, the rules are a little different for center-based, but that is correct.
Okay. Is there a reason why they said that FCCs have to have a high school graduate?
I don't know the rationale behind that.
Therese, I think that's a really good question. And when we get to some of the new department, one of the goals of that department is to begin working on better aligning all rules, licensing and regulation. So please remind us to revisit that. We don't have an answer right now, but that would be a good issue to get some answers on.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to call on Julie, and there are some additional questions in the chat box. So go ahead, Julie.
Okay, just two things. So they have to pay their tuition up front and then it's reimbursed?
That's correct.
Is that correct? Okay, that makes it a little more difficult for some. And then if somebody already did a degree, can they apply for a tuition reimbursement? I have some, my administrator graduated a few years ago.
No, it'd be for attainment, not so much a
Okay.
reimbursement. Yep,
Okay. All right, thank you.
no problem.
So Judith, I'm going to read the questions for somebody who might just be listening in, but you can also look at the chat box. But so if someone has an associate's degree in early childhood and currently a family service specialist, can I get a health and human services grant? So I'm assuming, if I'm reading correctly, and Heather, you can come off mute. Are you saying, are you eligible for this Career Compass reimbursement? Is that what you're asking? Let's see. All right, well, I'm not sure we have clarification for that, but if you're able to, Heather, add more in the chat box. Oh, there she is. She says, yes, that's what she's asking. So
Already has an associate's looking towards a bachelor's. Is that the? Yes. So if she already has the associates and she's looking at a school that has child development or early childhood that we support, it would be a T.E.A.C.H scholarship. If she is looking for one of these other acceptable degrees or a school that we don't currently cooperate with for T.E.A.C.H, then yes, Career Compass would be the way to go.
And INTA wants to confirm if a teacher's currently enrolled in a family study program, they would be eligible to apply for Career Compass.
Yes.
Okay. And Stephanie, not sure if this was answered, but she could apply for the CDA and complete that prior to graduation. And she can only work for CDA. Okay. So you're wanting to provide your high schooler with the best options for her. Judith, you can answer this and see if I'm correct. But I would think if there's some special situations with the high schooler, would it be best that they reach out to maybe one of the career counselors at Okra and
Yeah, that's
suggestion?
probably our best bet because there's some programs that like the College Credit Plus that are available to high school students that we don't personally administer, but can be helpful for their circumstance.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Awesome. So the last piece I have for this evening is around Power Ohio. Now, what I will say is currently we have reached capacity for Power Ohio, but I just want to make sure folks are aware that it exists because it is a component, again, as we're looking at the workforce scenarios that we want to make sure, we're trying our best for the retention component. And that's one of the things that Power Ohio does. So POWER is an acronym for Powering Optimal Wages and Encouraging Retention. The payments are made directly to professionals when educational milestones have been met and they're maintaining their employment at their program. It's important to note that the definition of program is their license center. So, every licensed program has a license number. And so when they submit their application, they are submitting the license number that they are currently at. So should that license number change, because the intent with this program is that you're staying at your site, then eligibility, you're no longer eligible then for payments. So we just want to make sure that we're very clear with that information, so folks understand that. Program and professional eligibility exists, and it can be found on our website. They can be used with T.E.A.C.H scholarships, and the application, when it is open, is also available on the Ohio Professional Registry. But should we have additional resources that become available and we are able to open, we typically send constant contact emails to the child care program to notify them of when an application becomes available.
Is there, I know this is in everybody's mind, is there anything in the works that you're aware of that you can share that there's hope for it to reopen?
It's dependent upon, so when we opened the first time, we not only received enough applications, we also had a very large wait list. And so we were able, through the support of the Department of Job and Family Services, clear the wait list. And so we have 1,100 recipients at this point. Currently, that meets the funding that we have. However, as I mentioned, as people are moving, they're leaving their programs, things of that nature, then those funds start to become available. So we're watching it very closely. And so, we'll be looking probably after the holidays to see if we're able to open it up again to make sure all of the funds that have been provided are spent. As I mentioned, we work on a fiscal year, which is July to June. So that's our goal each year.
Well, good to know it's being well utilized, and
for sure
might have some advocacy for next year to get some more funding.
Absolutely.
I have a comment about that one. So one of my employees was able to get it, I think $2,500, but then it causes like a rift with other employees that why did only the infant toddlers get it? Why did only that one particular person qualify for it out of our infant toddler group? So it just kind of like, I don't know how they're deciding who gets it. Or they're
part of it is through the application process. The most recent application opening for infant toddler was because there was additional infant toddler set aside in our state that we received additional funding. So it had to be used for infant and toddler teachers.
Right. Okay. I know it created some sadness in my other teachers. And they did not get the same thing. Oh, all right.
I kind of had a question or comment about strategies on recruiting employees. I'm wondering, would it make sense? I mean, it sounds like there's a larger demand and there's probably funding, but are the universities or, institutions of higher learning, do they ever have students that they either feel like need help that might benefit from partnering with a provider, or would it make sense for a provider to approach a institution of higher learning and say, hey, I'm looking for some people. Do you have students that might benefit from this additional scholarship? Just kind of a thought.
For sure. And so we do work with the higher ed institutions, the ones we cooperate with, to make sure that everyone possible that they have that's currently working in the field and meet our eligibility participate in Teach. I will say that it unfortunately is also a trend that higher ed institutions are seeing a decrease in those that are going into the field. So there seems to be fewer folks to work with from that regard as well. But definitely, I always, in your area, I would reach out to those higher ed institutions just to make sure that they have a connection with you. Sometimes they look for programs for practicum placement, things of that nature. And so it's helpful to have that connection.
I retired from the University of Dayton. My son, 3 nieces and whatnot, we're all education graduates. And I worked very closely with the Dean of Education at UD. And it got to the point, to your point, when you have someone who doesn't have the means and is going in debt, $70,000 to be a, early childhood education major, it's a real tough value proposition.
For sure. And that's one of our hopes, that, especially around the T.E.A.C.H scholarship, that they're graduating with little to no debt, so that they are able to, be in the field that they love and not carry that debt with them.
Again, this might be an odd question, but, I'm kind of I'm learning on the go here a little bit. My son and nieces, they student taught. They basically worked for free. I mean, is it possible for a provider who has someone who, really wants to focus on preschool? Are there student teaching positions that a university might place into a provider of a 0 to 12 facility?
So I know, Karen, I don't know if you can chat about kind of how that works at your school.
So that's the hot question, it's so challenging for students who are working to leave their work to go and student teach. So the language that we received in the past was that you are not allowed to be paid for your student teaching experience. And Judith, you can give me more updated language if you have it. So I was at a meeting where I specifically asked if that applied to early childhood programs, because we don't always place our student teachers in public schools. And the way the law was written, it seemed vague. So I asked that question to Krista Maxim, who said I could assume that it applied to all teacher prep programs and any practicum placements. So then the language was removed from the law that students placed could not be paid. And that had to do with trying to get these apprenticeship programs going, which I believe there's a whole different criteria for that. But I think that's only for public school placements. So I'm still, and this is the question of the 2-year teacher prep coalition, like what is the language around that? Like we really feel like we can't get clarification on that. I don't know, Judith, do you have anything that's updated around that? Like, can students complete their student teaching at a site where they're also receiving payment?
So that was supposed to be in the budget bill that was for July 1, and I don't think it went through as originally intended. Now we have with Teach a component that we have a practicum scholarship to assist with that. But my hope is that once we get a little farther along in the new department, we'll be able to revisit that to get it corrected.
So it sounds like there's still language that says student teachers cannot be compensated for their student teaching experience. Is that your understanding of it, Judith?
Yes, at this point.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay. So, but they are doing some apprenticeships programs, but that's a little different than what we're talking about for this field. Okay, that's the clearest. I mean, if you could see through the mud on that, but that's kind of the question everybody's been asking, because it's such a hardship for teachers to leave their classrooms to go and student teach somewhere. And we were fortunate enough to receive a nice gift for our program, so that we offer a stipend, which is separate from financial aid. Students can apply for this and they can get, as long as we have the money. I mean, the money is going to run out, but we offer these $2,000 stipends to help students with their financial hardships if they have to leave their work and student teach somewhere else. But so Todd, I guess, you know, we all want that, but there's some we need to do more work around that, I guess.
I used to go round and round with our dean, because one of the things that I always found fascinating was, you know, as you guys can imagine, the tuition at these universities can vary greatly. And yet, 2 ninth grade history teachers who are paying tuition and essentially doing the same thing might be paying $20,000 difference, you know, to student teach. And I always just, you know, as a parent, it used to always drive me crazy. Now, the other thing I'll leave with, and I don't want to take too much time, but in the doctorate of physical therapy program, when these residents would do, or when they would do their residencies out of these hospitals, the hospitals now are wanting to charge for that. Not only are they not paying the people, they're wanting to charge the university or, you know, or the student to actually get that experience, which I just scratches my head. But I don't want to derail the conversation, but this is pretty fascinating.
For sure.
Thank you for bringing that up, Todd. We have one more question from Lynette in the chat box. So she's a higher ed provider. So is it helpful to those who are, to encourage those who are taking courses as the same time as working, you know, the non-traditional students, who many are, to connect with a career counselor through Okra?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so Judith, would you like to wrap up with your contact information, and if there's anything else you wanted to share? This was obviously, everybody was very engaged in it. We're so glad that you could come and share this information.
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate everyone's time this evening. And if you've heard, you know, this before, sometimes it's just helpful to be current on it. So I appreciate everyone with those. And definitely, if you have any questions after this call, please reach out, because we would like to help and make sure that everyone that is eligible is taking advantage of these opportunities.
Okay. Thank you so much. You're welcome to get on with your night, or you're welcome to stay for the conversation. Totally up to you. We really appreciate your time, Judith.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Okay.